Hello and welcome to my top 5 games of 2017. For many, 2017 was a year filled with lots of good games, but to be honest with you, it was a year that didn't really have that much for me. Which is why I could only manage a top 5. If I'd done a top 10, I would have ended up putting things on there solely for the fact that I played them this year, not because I enjoyed them. And I may have had a few more entries on my list if I'd owned a Switch, but I don't. Which is why Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey are not on this list. They probably would have been if I wasn't too skint to get a Switch. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's look at my top 5 games of 2017. Danganronpa 1 and 2 Reload. Now technically these games were originally released on the Vita many years ago, but this re-release of the first two games was released this year on the PS4, so I'm going to count it. I mean, the series is new to me. Both the games have the same basic premise. A unknown mastermind has trapped you and all your classmates in an area. The first game has a school, and the second game has an island. The mastermind has trapped you so he can make you and your friends kill each other in some sort of anime Cluedo. Both these games are fantastic examples of visual novel games, a game genre I've honestly never really tried until now, but if there's any other visual novel games worth trying, I will certainly play some more. The real strength of the game is in the fun of the murder mysteries you have to solve, and the way you slowly peel back the layers of a certain murder. You'll often be completely surprised by who the killer is at the end of the trial. Out of the two games in the pack, I'd say the first is better, as the characters are more interesting and less mind-meltingly annoying, and the first game has a lot less anime fan service. The second has a lot of it, and it definitely made me cringe more than once. But they're both very good titles that warrant a purchase, even if you don't enjoy these types of games in general, because I don't, and I had a blast, and I'm definitely going to be reviewing these games in the not so distant future. Yakuza Zero. A few years back I was at a boot fair and I found a copy of the first Yakuza game for the PS2 on the cheap. It was a series I'd always wanted to try, so I thought, why not? But after a couple of hours playing the game, I just found that it really didn't grab me all that much and I stopped playing it. But after hearing so much positive stuff about Yakuza Zero, I thought, what the hell, I'll give it a go, and I'm glad I did. Yakuza Zero is basically a mix of Grand Theft Auto and Streets of Rage, but set in 1980s Japan. You follow the story of two Yakuza members, Goro Akechi and Kazuma Kiryu, and you'll switch back and forth between the two as you go through the game, and they both have their own open world cities to explore. Sure, the size of the open worlds might not be anything compared to say a Elder Scrolls or a Grand Theft Auto, but instead of making a giant open world with barely anything in it, they've done exactly the opposite, and made a smaller open world that's crammed with fun side quests that are often wacky and Japanese as all hell, and there's also loads of little mini games to play. Me and my girlfriend got a lot of fun out of the multiplayer pool, bowling and darts mini games that you can play. I got a lot of Super Monkey Ball vibes in these mini games, and it's not surprising given that Sega was involved with the making of the game. Along with this great setting to explore, you're given a fun combat system that feels like a spiritual successor to Streets of Rage. Sure, this combat is quite simple, but it never gets boring when you're smashing some thugs' heads in, and the different fighting styles and leveling up progression stops things from ever getting stale. A fantastic game that I would recommend you experience. It was one of the most joyful times I've had this year, with its story and wacky characters keeping me with a big grin on my face. Piatt. Supermassive Games is a company whose games are critically acclaimed and loved by many, but for whatever reason I just couldn't get into any of their games until Piatt. When I saw early footage of Piatt, I knew it might be a game I'll love, as I'm a big fan of sports games and RPGs. I know it's a bit of a weird mix, but what can I say? I love football, the English kind, and ice hockey. Before Piatt came along, I was yearning for a new game that could take up the mantle of fun arcadey sports games like Pitball, Sega Soccer Slam and Speedball 2, and Piatt definitely lives up to those games, and in many ways does a whole lot more. In Piatt, you play a character who's been exiled from society for some transgression you don't know about, and the only way you can get back is through playing some weird sport that's kind of like Magic Rugby. As you play through the campaign of the game, beating teams and encountering different people, you pick up new members for your team, and a plot contrivance really ensures that you use all your party members at your disposal, which I liked, as some people I wouldn't have ever used if it weren't for this. The way the story is structured really tugs at your heartstrings, and the way it slowly unravels as you go is very interesting. You end up getting attached to a lot of the people in your party. They're all fantastically written, and they all have their separate motivations for wanting to join your team. My favourite's Sir Gilman. He is one lovable, hilarious bastard, that's for sure. My only complaint about the game is I wish there was an online mode and some sort of season mode like a conventional sports game would have. It would have given it a lot more staying power with me. You never know, they could always add one, but this late from release I very much doubt it. But the story mode is reason enough to give it a playthrough. Night in the Woods. Few games can capture the feeling of being a 20-something with no direction, which, spoiler alert, is pretty much 99% of us 20-somethings. And it's surprising that a game with anthropomorphic animals can nail it down like no piece of media ever has. All the characters in the game feel real, they feel like people you know. There's conversations that feel like ones you've had, and it really struck a chord with me. You play May, a cat that is returning home because she's dropped out of college for unknown reasons, and the game is essentially a 2D platform adventure game where you just go around and talk to people. The 2D platforming doesn't have much to it, it's more of a vehicle for the story, and I'm okay with that. You essentially go around and reconnect with all the people from your hometown, and you find that your friends have grown up without you. And you have two main friends that you can choose to spend your time with, Greg the fox, and Beatrice, a gothy alligator. Well, at least I think she's an alligator, don't quote me on that. In a very Persona kind of way, you have to choose who to spend your time with so that you can get all of their cutscenes. I personally did one whole playthrough just seeing Beatrice and one just seeing Greg so I could see everything. But there's also other stuff going on in the quiet town of Possum Springs, and that mystery kind of unfolds as you're reconnecting with your friends. It really gives me a Scott Pilgrim vibe. Night in the Woods is a charming game that's definitely worth a play if you want a game that's going to get way too real and make you laugh at the same time. Persona 5. Persona 4 is one of my favourite games of all time, and Persona 3 is definitely up there as well. It was the series that got me back into RPGs, with its subtle mix of school life simulation and dungeon crawling that just seems to suck away hundreds of hours for people, me included. So to say I was excited for Persona 5 is a bit of an understatement. I actually pre-ordered it, which is a thing I've not done in a very long time, as I wanted to make sure I had a copy on launch day. And I'm glad to say it lived up to my very, very high expectations. It's still not knocked Persona 4 off its perch as my favourite in the series, but it's certainly damn close. In this entry in the series, you play as a character who is sent to the big city on probation for an assault on the wrong person to mess with. And along the way you end up forming the Phantom Thieves of Hearts, who go around changing the hearts of criminals. And like other games in the series, it certainly doesn't pull any punches. It has a plot that kept me gripped till the end. I found all the different people you could hang out with in the game utterly charming. There's definitely a big variety like in the other Persona games. The gameplay is mostly unchanged from the other Persona games, which is fine with me, why fix what ain't broke. I like that instead of the randomly generated dungeons of the old games, they've replaced them with handcrafted dungeons that stay the same. You can see the embryo of this in their previous game, Tokyo Mirage Sessions, which is on the Wii U, which had a similar dungeon style. It's more like a JRPG version of the dungeons from the Legend of Zelda games, with you running around solving puzzles. Also, the art style and the music is fucking incredible. Even something as simple as the post-battle screen is oozing style, and the music definitely holds up to the Persona standard with loads of jazz and rock tunes that are just a pleasure to listen to. Beneath the Mask is a song I legit listen to in the car on a regular basis. Persona 5 is a perfect example of a fan base getting exactly what they want with some sprinkles on top, and that's why it's my favourite game of 2017. Thank you for watching my top 5 games of 2017, and I wish you all a happy new year, and I'll see you later.